On this episode of ITG, March Madness comes to Morgantown, and what rule changes would you make to college athletics if you were commissioner for a day? All that and more on this edition of In the Gun.
Caution, this podcast contains bad jokes, optimism, and a healthy disdain for Pat Narduzzi. Watching it may increase your actual knowledge of actual football.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Towards the end, he in there, Jed Drenning.
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable is playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 330 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I'm Wes Uhler, as always, with the best teammates in the business. You've got myself and the signal caller for this edition of ITG. And as always, we've got a great village that makes this all possible. A big shout out to Toothman Ford, JR, all the good people there at Team Toothman. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. A big thank you to Fortis and our good friend Rick Lewis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. And of course, friends of the show, friends in real life, the good people at Johnston Equipment, Tim, Emily, Bryce, and the whole gang there. Make sure you're checking them out, visiting them on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. You can also always check them out online. Johnston, that's with a T, JohnstonEQ.com. We're going to have some fun on this episode of ITG. We're going to talk about some rule changes that we would make to college athletics, specifically college football. If we were commissioner for a day, we have the over-under numbers out now for the 2026 college football season. We'll discuss where WVU lands in the Big 12 pecking order there. But Jed, we have, I think, some real housekeeping around campus that we need to attend to here. And we have to, of course, start things off with our Big 12 champion women's basketball team. We discussed that briefly on the last episode of In the Gun. They finished the regular season ranked 11th, Jed, which is awesome in the AP poll. And because of that, we will be hosting first and second round action at the Hope Coliseum for Women's March Madness. So for those unfamiliar how this works, the first and second rounds are held on campus until you get to the Sweet 16 and it moves to neutral locations. So the Mountaineers will be hosting what will be 3 games there, the first round games, and then the second round game. WVU, the 4 seed, we will host Miami of Ohio Saturday, March 21st. Also, Kentucky, the 5 seed against James Madison, the 12 seed, will also be on Saturday. And then the winners of those will meet Monday, March 23rd, with a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. Jed, pretty stinking cool hosting Women's March Madness at the Coliseum in Morgantown, what that means for the program, what that means for the economy. You pointed out, great point by you, Kentucky, James Madison, Miami of Ohio, all those fan bases within a couple hours. I'm sure they'll bring fans to Morgantown. That fills up the restaurants, fills up the bars, fills up the hotels. It's just awesome, and a real chance to set a women's program Coliseum record for attendance here in the coming weekend, and what's just going to be an awesome trio of games at the Coliseum.
Coming off a Big 12 championship game in the tournament in which West Virginia, I was looking for the tweet that Johnny Antoniuk posted. I believe it was the most viewed women's championship game in Big 12 history. Almost 900,000 watched that game. So all arrows are pointing up. You talked about that record. You mentioned off air that you actually covered that game. 13,447 against Baylor is the record. Now, all indications would seem to be we're going to at least challenge that record, right, Wes? I mean, it's pushing in every direction. We sold our allotment. Things are kind of on standby or on hold. 1,500 student tickets have been carved out. So it's going to be quite an environment, I would imagine, on Saturday with Miami. And Miami, what's in the water in Miami, Ohio? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, They
The hoops
they
programs are
talked about
rolling.
this is the program in the MAC that is really getting serious about NIL spending. I mean, I sent you guys in the group chat, what was it, a week or two ago? They're talking about Miami, Ohio, not long ago was spending 80,000 on NIL and football. That could be 100 times more this season at maybe 8 million, which would put them right there at the top of G5. But meanwhile, the men's team having this historic season, the women's team, I'm looking at their record right here, 28-6, and more importantly, 10-5 on the road. So something's going on with Miami, Ohio sports, but something's definitely going on with West Virginia women's basketball. And Coach Kellogg has those gals humming.
Certainly does, and I'd love to see that attendance record get broke. As you mentioned, that was January of 2013, Jed, so it was just a couple weeks after I graduated. I was still working a bunch of different part-time jobs in broadcasting, trying to get my first full-time job, and that was the Brittany Griner Baylor year. And for those who are unfamiliar, she was kind of like Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. The year before, the Baylor women's team went like 40-0 and won the national championship, and she was the dominant force. And they came to Morgantown, 13,000. I mean, all kinds of girls basketball players from all over West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Maryland, DC, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Columbus, you name it. They all came to Morgantown, over 13,000 people. As you said, I did work that game. It was out of control. The traffic was nuts. The volume level was nuts. I forget what the exact score was, but I think Baylor beat us pretty comfortably. And I remember like trying to get out of the Coliseum after a women's basketball game, and it was a nightmare. And I was like, man, what? I was like, this is incredible. Like normally I'd be in and out for work in those games, but instead there was all kinds of security because there were hundreds, if not thousands, of young girls like crowding the Baylor exit, hoping to get a picture and an autograph or a sight of Brittany Griner as she got on the Baylor bus after the game. It was just absolute chaos. And that was like 2 weeks after I graduated. And yeah, I mean, it was just, I still remember that very vividly, just an insane scene at the Coliseum when that Baylor team that was, I mean, they were, again, think of some of those Caitlin Clark teams, think of some of the UConn's women's teams under Gino Auriemma. Like they were the story of women's college sports at that point. Kim, I forget her last name, but she's the head coach at LSU now, the legendary women's college basketball coach. She was the coach at Baylor, so they had the legendary head coach. They had one of the greatest college women's basketball players of all time in Brittany Griner. But yeah, let's get over 14,000 and knock that off its perch, Jed, and hopefully replace it with a better memory as opposed to that time that the Baylor Bears women's team came into Morgantown and had their way with the ladies. But yeah, certainly just an incredible opportunity for the women here, and hopefully when we talk next week, we'll be talking about 2 wins at the Coliseum and a trip to the Sweet 16.
Let's hope so. All we had to do was slap a Hope sponsorship onto the
That's
Coliseum.
exactly right.
And we're off and running. But I'm looking at Miami, and Wes, this is another little bit of intrigue here. Miami closed the regular season out a couple weeks ago, 10 days ago, week and a half ago, against Ohio. The Bobcats beat them by 15 to close out the regular season. 6 days later, they beat the Bobcats 80-52 in the MAC tournament. So after losing by 15, they beat them by 28. But hey,
impressive.
This isn't about them. This is about us.
That's right.
As long as the Fighting Kellogg's keep doing what they're doing, we'll be just fine.
Absolutely. And sticking with hoops for just a second, Jed, the men's team has accepted an invite to the College Basketball Crown Tournament, which will take place in Las Vegas beginning not for a few weeks until April 2nd. That's a Thursday that the Mountaineers will begin Wednesday, April 1st. The Mountaineers will play April 2nd. So it's just an 8-team tournament, 8 teams in Las Vegas, Jed. We play Stanford in the quarterfinals, Rutgers, Creighton, Baylor, Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Colorado. And what is, I think this is just the second year of the crown, if I'm correct. If you win, your program gets a nice, I think it's $1 million, million something dollars in an NIL check. It is, one of these, we've seen these, and not just the NIT, but the CBI and some of these other postseason tournaments that have come and go over the years. And listen, Jed, all I have to say about this, it's very simple. I know some people laugh at this and they're like, what's the point? If you're not in March Madness, who really cares? The NIT doesn't mean anything. The CBI doesn't mean anything. What's this little crown new tournament in Las Vegas? And from a traditional perspective, I get it. But hey, call me crazy. I want to watch my team play as many times as possible. I know I've said this on the show before, Jed. Aside from my friends and my family and my wife and my kids and, these things that really matter in life, there's not much that matters more to me than WVU and WVU athletics. And so I want to see my team play. I know now the cool thing is, well, if you're not in the college football playoff, who cares? Let's just sit out our bowl game. The season's over. Let's be like Notre Dame and let's shut it down. Let's be like all these other programs and let's just play all of our freshmen and our sophomores and everybody will get ready for the draft. College basketball, if you're not in the tournament, screw the NIT, screw the CBI. Everybody hit the transfer portal and just get ready for your next thing. I understand games evolve and I don't want to sound like get off my lawn guy when it comes to that stuff. But if our guys still want to play, hell yeah, I still want them to play, and I still want to watch. It's an opportunity to watch these guys for a few more games. It's an opportunity to potentially have a couple fun memories and moments to end the season. We've lost so much of the forest through the trees in this new era of college sports. I realize that bowl games aren't the college football playoff. I realize that this is not March Madness. But I still want to watch my team play as many games as possible. I love these guys. I love these programs. And if they're playing, I'm watching. And so I think this is pretty cool. The fact that our group of players didn't say, screw this, we're done, we're focusing on our next opportunity. They said, no, we got a chance here. Let's go to this tournament. Let's play a few more games representing the old gold and blue and maybe go make some final memories. I think that's awesome. Call me crazy, but I think it's great, and I'll be watching.
Well said. And the thing about the Crown is it's tried to take this approach, and it feels like still kind of finding its way, right? Like when you look at the field of teams that's populating that tournament, you can't call it exclusive. I like the fact that they're limiting the number of total teams and depict one of the great sports and entertainment cities in not just the country, but all the world in Las Vegas. It makes sense to try and build it from that standpoint, because the beauty of Las Vegas is there are so many passive fans that are sports fans that they just happen to be in Vegas on a trip that has nothing to do with college basketball. Well, a lot of those fans, they'll find it interesting and they'll check out.
I could go watch WVU and Stanford play for $20. Yeah,
absolutely. So now maybe over the arc of time, if they continue with this, it can be a little more selective in terms of who gets in, and it will be a little more coveted. I mean, you're not in the tournament, that's the dance everybody obviously wants to be in, as you talked about. But the NIT kind of felt diluted, watered down, a little fractured. So if you want to take the approach, it's not like you want to have a full-blown tournament to challenge the NIT. This is almost like a mini tournament.
I like it.
And the fact that it's all right there in Vegas, that's why it might have a little pop or sizzle to it to make it interesting otherwise than just what's going on between the lines on the hardwood. So I'm all for it. I think it's interesting, and I think it's a good idea. And in the past, the reasons that you wanted your team to go to the NIT, the reason you wanted to see West Virginia, if it got nudged out of the NCAA tournament, you're like, well, hey, we're building towards something.
Right.
It'll be cool to watch. That's not the case anymore. I mean, the vast majority of this roster is going to be gone. Every team's going to be starting from scratch just about every year, with a couple exceptions. So there are other reasons to look forward to these types of things, and you just talked about and enumerated some of those reasons, and I like the way you put that.
We're going to talk about rule changes to college sports in the next segment, Jed. And I realize, I can't just say, we'll make bowl season matter again. That's not a rule change. But yes, would I love it if WVU is in the playoff? Certainly. But you know what? If they're 6-6 and they get an opportunity to play a 13th game, I'm watching. WVU college basketball, if they get an opportunity to play 1 or 2 or 3 extra games, I'm watching. It's some of my favorite things in the world, and we only get it for such a short amount of time in a calendar year. And I think that's a great point by you too, being a little selective, not trying to make this like a big NIT or March Madness. Let's just make it fun, a quick little sprint for a long weekend in a fun entertainment city. And yeah, and to me, it just more speaks so to the guys that are wearing that uniform, wearing the old gold and blue, that are saying, hey, we could all shut this thing down and be done and look to our next opportunity, look to the next, whether we're transferring, whether we're going to play basketball at a professional level, whatever the case may be, whether we're just getting on with our life's work. I think it's pretty cool that this group of guys, too, said, no, we want to keep playing. We want to keep representing this university and this program. I think in this modern era, that's pretty cool to me as well, too.
Yes.
Jed,
the only thing we forgot to mention there was, and I'm surprised we didn't lead with that. We're talking about this Vegas tournament, was when the projections were first coming out.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about having some potential sizzle. It looked almost like a certain group from Bloomington was going to be
that would have been the
in
dream.
the same side of the bracket.
That would have been the dream.
That would have been fantastic. Yeah, that would have been fantastic. But that's not to be.
Not to be, but we'll get DeVries and IU one of these days. Don't you worry. The universe has a funny way of making those things happen. Two more things around campus here, Jed, before we go to break that we have to touch on. Just wanted to, and we'll continue to do this all throughout the spring, shout out and keep an eye on the WVU men's baseball team. Number 18 right now in the Baseball America polls, Jed. Pretty awesome. Coming off of 2 back-to-back historic seasons for the program and still being a top 20 program, still having another shot to go on a great run this year, and they've gotten off to a great start. We love to see that. And, of course, Jed, to our very own Alabama of college football, UConn women's basketball, UCLA or Duke men's basketball, the WVU rifle program, baby. Best in the nation. 21st time. 21. They've won so many national championships, they can now buy a beer. The WVU rifle team going back-to-back national champions just here in the last couple days, Jed. Their 21st title. Pew, pew! In program history. Hey, you want some shooters? Send the Mountaineers in, baby.
You see that Sickos committee on Twitter had assembled a list of the most championships, and what's interesting are some of the other names that are on the list behind West Virginia.
Yeah, like Army and Navy.
Well, okay, you got number 2, makes perfect sense. Alaska with 11 national championships, last in 2023. So quite a formidable program in their own right. Kentucky TCU tied with 4. Think about that. West Virginia, you talked about how many? 21.
21.
Right? Alaska second with 11, and then 2 programs tied with 4. That's how distant the number 3 is. And then behind them, Murray State with a couple. You mentioned Army in 2005 has one. It was kind of cool to see that list because so rarely do you see any program or any school associated with shooting with rifle. Other than West Virginia. So pretty interesting list.
It's almost like the Yankees have 27 World Series and nobody else is really that close. The Montreal Canadiens have like 23 or 24 Stanley Cups. Nobody else is really that close. So yeah, we're just like the New York Yankees or the Montreal Canadiens of rifle. No big deal. Just another day at the office for the WVU rifle program. Congratulations to all the men and all the ladies there with that program on their 21st national championship. We've got to take a break. When we come back on the other side, what rules would we make to collegiate athletics, specifically college football, rule changes? If we were commissioner, we'll discuss that. Also, Vegas over-unders. Speaking of Las Vegas, the over-unders for the college football season for the Big 12 are out. What's WVU's number? Are we going over? Are we going under? How do we feel about it? We'll hit on all those things and more when we return. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, you are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
Back in the gun here as we roll along on this episode of ITG. And Jed, you sent us a very interesting tweet to our group chat earlier this week, and we thought that this would be a fun conversation. It's the off season. We've got free time. It's kind of that let's find some fun content to kick around time of the year. Basically, just a prompt about, hey, if you were in charge of college sports, what rule changes would you make?
It was posted on X by Todd Furman, an analyst for CBS Sports HQ. And Todd Furman's tweet, post, whatever you want to call it, was such. If you could change a single rule in any sport, what would it be? Baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, tennis, motorsport, etc. The world is your oyster. So I retweeted it with 3.
We kind of went college football. We kind of went college football centric. Since this is, I don't need to ramble on about the changes that I would make in hockey and things like that. I don't think this is the audience for that. I'm going college football specific here.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to do as well. So I haven't heard yours. You saw mine on X.
All right, I did.
Some of the listeners have. What do you got?
Real quick, and I assumed that these things weren't the case, but I just want to double check with you. Like, by the letter of the law, this has to be an actual rule change, right? So I can't just say, let's go back to the way conferences were 25 years ago, right? Because that's not a rule change, right?
One of mine kind of
like I can't say let's go back to the BCS system, can I? Because that's not really a rule change. That's more like a parameter of it.
But yeah.
Because I could say I want the players to form a players association, but that's not really a rule change. That's an element of this. So I stuck like by the book in terms of actual rule, not like I wish we were in a conference with Pitt and Virginia Tech and these schools again. I
see what you're saying. Yeah, perfect sense. Yeah,
like just rule changes, not the greater good of the game.
One of mine kind of skews toward, okay, it still involves the game. The game just ended. It's right at the stadium. Okay, something directly involving or indirectly involving a game. I think that's fair. Not the game at large. You know what I mean? It's in some ways, I guess. Let's get I want to hear yours first. Without further ado.
Here's my first one, and I'm excited to run this by you because Jed, I like to think there's not many people in my life that love college football more than I do, but you're on the short list, okay? It's a very I could probably count it on one finger, and it might be Jed Drenning.
Flattered.
College football, it's time to just go to all NFL rules, except for overtime. Leave overtime, baby. It's so much better than the NFL. Let's keep that pureness. And we just all witnessed the backyard brawl back in September, all right? We don't want to change anything about that. But other than that, college sports are so into let's make everything like the NFL now. Let's do it. Let's adopt the same clock rules. First downs and 2-minute warnings are exactly the same. You're down by contact, not down when your knee's down. Pass interference enforcement is the same. 2 feet in bounds for a catch, not just one. An eligible man downfield being an actual thing for offensive linemen. Jed, aside from overtime, let's have the same rules as the NFL. Everyone keeps telling me we want this sport to be more like the pro game, and we're doing all this different stuff with the playoff and making it look like more like the NFL. Cool. Get rid of one knee is down. Get rid of 1 foot is in bounds. Get rid of all these weird wonky clock rules, and go to the same parameters as the National Football League.
Your knees down, you're not touched. You can jump up and run, right?
Yep.
The only one that I might, if there's 1 or 2 rules, if you want to say, okay, we're going to go wholesale into the NFL rule book, but you want to retain 1 or 2 things, I would start with maybe instead of making defensive pass interference a spot foul like it is in the NFL, you already have such a, and here this is from the former quarterback, former coordinator. I'm all about the offense, right? But there are already so many advantages that the offense has in the modern game.
Sure.
I don't know if we want to go all in and make it a spot foul so you can have a 40-yard
It's funny you bring that up. It's funny you bring that up because that's the one that I struggle with the most is what to do with pass interference.
It makes sense. I mean, at some point we've discussed before, we're probably going to be running some version of a kickoff, much like the NFL does. It's still a very high collision part of the sport. We're doing everything we can to mitigate or limit the number of actual kickoff returns. So we've come just short of overhauling it like the NFL has. I think at some point we probably will, but that's hard to dispute. The biggest thing is, Wes, you'd want to go with the NFL calendar, and the enrollment rules of college football make that a little tricky, a little sticky. But because it seems like every time we come up with a fly in the ointment of where we're trying to go and sort this out, it isn't because of the rules that have changed. It's because of the rules, to your point, that haven't.
Yes.
Okay, it's a difference between the NFL and college, which is a sticking point that you land in court over it. I mean, all these different things that are playing out. It's not because of the things that you have changed to be like the NFL, but it's the things that you're still trying to be different. So that's interesting. That is interesting. It's hard to dispute the rationale behind it. And of course, a couple of years ago, with the clock changes that were made to college football,
it's closer. It's closer.
We're already closer. And this is something that at some point in the offseason, there's some interesting data out there right now talking about how the total offensive leaders in the country are the lowest they've been in nearly a quarter century from a total offense standpoint, and the host of reasons behind that. So we'll talk about that in the offseason. Then I'll throw some content in an episode or two.
I like that.
But the rules changes a couple years ago to the clock and the clock churning were pretty sizable. Those were significant rules changes, and they made it a lot more like the NFL. So you no longer have teams averaging 90 snaps a game,
right? Like
you once did just a handful of years ago, and the NFL never did. So not bad. I like that one. That's interesting.
All right.
Maybe even take it and say, all right, but if there's 3 we can discuss to keep different, okay, we'll come up with 3. And you and I both agree one of them might be DPI, right?
That's the only one that because I do think that there's a little bit of for the most part, I lean towards just make it a 15-yard penalty like college football. But then the cynical part of me is you get into a fourth quarter and the team with the lead, just starts tackling receivers downfield because they'd rather take a 15-yard penalty than give up a 40-yard pass. So yeah, that's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah, that was the whole rationale behind it. Okay, well, I'll start with my first. My first, outside of some D coordinators who hate facing tempo offenses, I don't know if you're going to get much dispute from this one. I said lying on the field injured equals that player being out for the remainder of the half. Now, again, they've tried to address this loosely through rules changes. Right now, as the rule stands, if you lie on the field after the ball is spotted, you're charged a timeout, and if you're out of timeouts, it's a 5-yard penalty. So technically, it is an infraction if you do it after the ball's spotted. The issue is none of these defenders are waiting for the ball to be spotted. As soon as the previous play is over and they're getting whacked with tempo and don't have any answers and need more time to adjust, they're being instructed by their staff. I remember how many players did Pitt, speaking of the backyard brawl last year, how many players did Pitt have lie down on the field in the second half
about
of that game?
537 by my calculations.
Yes. So let's just make it clear. If you're going to lie down on the field after a play is over, forget this stuff after the ball's spotted. After a play is over at any point before the next play, don't wait on the ball to be spotted. Who cares if the ball's spotted? If a play ends and a player lies on the field, of course, the last thing you want to do is punish a hurt player. Say, okay, you're not going to punish him. It's not going to be a penalty. You're just going to have to sit out for the remainder of the half. Now, if you want to argue that as a punishment, fair enough. But at least it's not an enforcement of 15 yards, 5 yards, anything like that. You're not hurting the team at large. So I think you need something to dissuade these defenses from doing this. Come up with better answers, get in better shape, be better at defending tempo, instead of trying to find this as a cheap way out. So if you want to lie on the field, you're allowed to do so. If you're injured, you should lie on the field. But you're not going to return for the remainder of that half. Now, if you want to get strategic and the D coordinator wants to get so creative and cute, he's trying to involve some strategery, all right, as they used to say, fair enough. If you want to try and get some backups in there just to have them lie on the field and not play the rest of the half, well, they also have to try and defend those snaps while they're on the field. So I think that would go a long way toward remedying the issue. Because the current rule, the after the ball is spotted part of that doesn't really help much, and it hasn't done much to limit or restrain defenses from doing that. So that was my first.
Jed, I love it. I'm totally with you on this one. I do think, to be fair, you might be being a little too harsh. Like I might start at, if you're laying on the field injured, you're out for the rest of that possession, you're out for the rest of that series, because what if it happens 3 minutes into the first quarter and you go back to the bench and you get your hamstring worked on, and but now you got to sit there for another 90 minutes. I don't hate where your head's at. It might be a little strict. Maybe you're out the rest of the quarter, maybe you're out the rest of the series, but in general, I love that idea, because I think that's something that needs addressed, and I think that that's something that has no easy answer. And so I would rather err on the side of, the onus is on you. And if you're gonna lay down on the field for 2 minutes in the middle of a play, you better really, mean it.
Your thoughts go, Wes. So many of these things tend to happen toward the end of drives as the defense is getting gassed, because now they've been out there for 6 straight plays and they can't handle it. So if we tried to remedy it by saying, okay, just the rest of this possession, they'd be like, great, you're already in the red zone. I mean, that's the reason I'm doing it. So I only got to sit out 2 or 3 plays. That's a pretty good deal for me. I'm going to have me and 5 teammates lay down because we're exhausted from this drive that put us inside the 20. That's a pretty fair deal. I'm going to keep doing it. But if you're out for the half, you're going to really revisit that. And I don't know if you're going to be doing that.
I'm totally with you on that. We might disagree on what the punishment is, but in terms of the acknowledging the crime, we are in lockstep. I think that's a great call by you.
Sure.
You want me? Okay. My second one, Jed, is fumble into the end zone. You retain possession. And I agree with what you just said. In the lexicon of football rule books, we legislate everything to the benefit of the offense. So I do understand that this is kind of like the one thing that the defense still has going for it. But everywhere else on the football field, for 100 yards, you can't fumble the ball forward and have forward. If you fumble the ball at your own 40-yard line and it bounces 5 yards forward, 3 yards forward, you still keep it at your 40-yard line. If you're in your own end zone and the defense punches the ball loose and it rolls out of the end zone, it's still it rolls forward. That's still a safety. That ball's still marked where the fumble took place. You can't advance the ball forward on a fumble when you have the ball. So why all of a sudden when the fumble is advanced forward out of the back of the end zone, does it go to the defense and is a touchback? I don't think there's a perfect solution for this, but the offense should get the ball at the 1 yard line or the 20-yard line. I don't care, but I just think it's the only time that we change the rule that fumbling forward matters, and it just doesn't make, that rule has never made sense to me at any level of football.
Push back on this one.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I was 10 years old in 1980, the first time I saw this rule. It was in a Steelers-Seahawks game. Franco Harris fumbled through the end zone, and I didn't know what was going to come of it. That was the first time I encountered it. I thought, well, the Steelers will get the ball at the 1. And when they ruled the Seahawks got the ball, I very harshly learned the reality of that rule at a young age. And so I've known it ever since. And the way I approach this is I think it's unique because there is only one end zone the offense is trying to reach. There's only one part of the field the offense wants to end up in, and that is that end zone. All right. Now, to put an offense in position to try whatever fancy leaps or twists or jumps and stretch the ball and put the ball in harm's way and not punish them for risking ball security at the most critical part of the field. I'm like, look, if you're going to be punished for ball security anywhere, it should be there more than anywhere. You should be practicing and exhibiting exemplary ball security the closer you get to the goal line. So if you want to fumble it, first of all, don't be getting cute with the football. A lot of these things happen. And I wasn't in the meeting room 150 years ago when they came up with this rule to decide, okay, the defense gets it. And I'm not so sure that a lot of these guys were trying to go, Deion Sanders style and stretch toward the pylon with the football. But in today's game, that's part of what it discourages. It discourages you trying to get so cute that you might lose possession of the football as you dive through the air to stretch, as it should. And I have zero problem with that being the only place on the football field, as it is the only place on the football field. Everything an offense does is designed to reach, that you should be punished and the defense should be rewarded. I mean, imagine how frustrating it would be if you had the ball first and goal at the 1. Three times in a row you fumbled through the end zone, and 3 times in a row they put it back on the 1 and you got another chance. I'm like, that would be insane.
Well, that would be insane. When you paint it that way, you're right. That would be nuts.
So exhibit better ball security and protect it. And to your defense, Wes, it's every time these discussions come up, that's almost the first rule people go to. People have always had an issue with that rule.
It's just weird. It's just different.
And I know I had an issue with it because I was pulling for the Steelers in 1980, right? The first time I saw it happen, but with, so many years to consider it, ruminate over it, toss it into the gray matter and stir it around. I'm like, I get it. You're trying to reach the end zone. And the reason that it's different than when you fumble out of your own end zone or when you fumble out of bounds, your own end zone and out of bounds aren't the offense's ultimate destination. That end zone is. So it stands to reason to me that there would be a different rule involving that end zone.
Jed, nobody can ever call you partisan because despite being a quarterback and a signal caller, you are arguing for the defense of the defense. And so I appreciate it, and I actually admire it, partner. So I will take it. I think that's well said. What's number 2 for you?
I'm going to mix my order up. I'll save 2 for last, but I'll go with the other one that I had here.
Okay.
And again, this is the one that's not really in the rule book. You understand when I say it. What if the head official had to answer media questions for 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is always coming up. And the reasons they're reluctant to do so, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, first of all, you're trying to avoid the escalation of controversy. Sure. And you want to protect, well, at least the sport at large, the powers that be want to protect the officials. Games often end with one team feeling a little more slighted than the other team.
Sure.
And think of how easy it would be. You're trying to preserve the faceless neutrality of officials. And by putting a face on an official at a podium with a microphone, I mean, that's wiping that all out. And, the sport likes to control the narrative, and not allowing this prevents, whatever kind of crazy comments or off-the-cuff comments an official might make. You could argue, well, a coach can make these comments and it damages his team. Well, if an official makes these comments, maybe it damages the sport, the integrity of the sport, not just the team. And it could spark lawsuits or more debates, or the media could take something he said and manipulate it a certain way. Who knows what might happen? Here I am making the devil's advocate case, but I'd kind of like to see it. I'd kind of like to see it. There are games, Wes, you and I know, that if you have the coaches having their press conference and at the same time the media is having theirs, imagine if you did it that way, because there will be people tuning into the officials more than the coaches after certain games, including the media. Maybe you'd have to do them, then the coaches or something. I don't know how you'd structure that.
So I like this one. This is a great talking point. This is kind of like what I said about fumbling out of the back of the end zone. Whenever you have these type of conversations, this always comes up. And just from an intrigue standpoint, I totally get it. But I do think what you said is spot on. All that's sports are inherently controversial. And all that's going to do is just open the lid of that controversy even more. These head coaches and these athletes, they've got PR staffs and SIDs and people that drill into them. This is how you answer these questions, and this is what you say, and this is what you don't. These referees are going to go up there, and what if they say something that they don't exactly mean, or they regret, or they're not used to speaking publicly, and they don't word it the most eloquent or loquacious way, and the words kind of get twisted. I love it, Jed, but there would need to be some parameters. Like, you couldn't just open it up to the general media, and then you get some game in Old Miss and all these Old Miss honk reporters who, view everything through red and baby blue glasses are like trying to hold the referee's foot to the fire because they're just as much of a fan as they are a media member. You couldn't have that happen. But if it was like, hey, after the WVU Oklahoma game in Morgantown in 2018, we're going to let our sideline reporter, Jed Drenning, go ask the official, why the hell did you call TJ Simmons for blocking out of bounds when we never see this called? I could get behind something like that, but it would have to be somebody. It'd have to be somebody, not just some Joe Blow blogger guy who has media credentials and is going to go in there with his blue and gold glasses and ask his Homer honk WVU question or his Homer honk Colorado or Pitt or Oklahoma question. But if it was somebody if it was an SID or a sideline reporter or someone, yes, that's attached to the programs, but has a little more decorum and a little more professional integrity, then I could absolutely get behind it. I just wouldn't want it to be some open media session where any honk with a credential badge can come in and start hooting and hollering at the official.
Notice I said 3 minutes too. And one of the reasons I said 3 minutes is because I do think a good official would master the art of filibustering part of that time, right? So, if he gets a question he doesn't mind so much, he'll spend 2.5 minutes answering it, probably is my guess. But so if you were to take the national media and just allow the national media, Bruce Feldman's at the game working the sidelines, and you don't allow the local media, to your point, Wes, so maybe the national media would be a little more neutral. That would probably be more even-handed, but defanging it to that level would make it so much less interesting that why even bother doing it? But here we are 8 years removed from that call on TJ Simmons. Which was a 14-point swing, because we all remember what happened when the ball was brought back in the next play. Strip sack for a touchdown for Oklahoma. So we went
14-point swing.
We went from West Virginia first and goal inside the 5 to touchdown Oklahoma on the next play.
14-point swing in a game that we lost by 3 points. Not that I'm still pissed off about it a decade later.
Here we are 8 years later, and we still haven't clearly heard a any kind of accounting clearly articulated on that call.
Well,
I mean,
actually, you know what, Jed?
but...
I've got official comment from the official right now. Well, actually, it's because it was Oklahoma, guys, and we were doing everything we could to keep Oklahoma happy and get them in the playoff and get Kyler Murray his Heisman because we didn't want Oklahoma to leave us for the SEC, which they ended up doing anyways and shoving it up our ass regardless. That was the official comment from the official.
So, and the other thing, Wes, there are games that officials through the years have been concerned getting off the field with their safety, right? And just imagine.
Yeah, how about when Patrick Ewing Jr. goaltended at the Coliseum back in 2009, Jed? And Bob Huggins chased him off the court.
Think about the Syracuse fight in '92, right? The Marvin Graves game. But
get me fired up. You get me fired up.
Now you got an official. He's thinking, okay, I'm safe. I got off the field. Well, now he has to worry about getting out of the press room. He has to worry twice.
I know. That's tough. That's tough.
We're never going to see it, but it's worth discussing and fleshing out. The reasons for not doing so are obvious. So we almost by law have to discuss that as a possibility in such a conversation. So that being said, what say you for your next one? What do you got?
So my last one is similar to your last one. I know yours relates to targeting, as does mine. So I kind of added a bonus addendum. My last one is in targeting. Instead of kicking the guy out, it's 15 yards the first time, and you're out for the rest of the series, and then it's an ejection the second time. But enough of this we get these controversial bang plays, happens in the first quarter. These are college kids who some of these guys only get 1 or 2 seasons to put their resume on tape to try and get to the NFL, and you're throwing them out of games because of one bang play. Second time, absolutely, kick them out. But the first time, come on, what are we doing here? That's a little too harsh. But Jed, I know you wanted to touch on that one too, so I'll kind of save that for you. So my bonus ones for you are college basketball related, okay? And they're just kind of tied together. I would change when there's a jump ball, let's actually have a jump ball. Forget the possession arrow. What the heck is this nonsense with the possession arrow? When there's a jump ball, it's a jump ball between the two guys fighting for the ball. So if it's a 6'1" point guard against a 7-foot center, guess what? Jump ball. I don't care. But what's the point of the possession arrow? When it's a jump ball, let's actually have a jump ball. And then my second one, Jed, was you got to have a winning conference record or at least 500 conference record to get an at-large bid to March Madness. So I'm not talking about the Cinderella teams that win their conference tournament. At-large bids for March Madness, you can't have a losing conference record. That's happened 10 times in the last 3 years, Jed. 10 times in the last 3 years, and only 8 of those 10 teams have lost in the first round. And shocker, I know this will surprise a lot of people, but a lot of those teams are SEC teams, of course, and they try to do that BS again this year with Auburn. Fortunately, it didn't work, but SMU got in this year despite being 8-10 in the overrated SEC. Arkansas is the only team that has gotten in, and that was the John Calipari, first year, run that they went on last year, actually, as the 10 seed. Arkansas is the only one. Other than that, all these teams, 10 times in the last 3 years, a team with a losing record in conference has gotten an at-large bid. Save me with that. All right? It's an absolute joke. College basketball is not college football. All right? The Big 12 is the best basketball conference in men's college basketball, but I don't need this SEC Big 10, we went 8-10, da-da-da-da-da. All the top conferences in college basketball are really good. Big 12's the best, but they're all really good. The SEC, the Big 10, the ACC, the Big 12, they all have great teams at the top. I'm sorry. If you have a losing conference record, you cannot get an at-large bid to March Madness. That's a bunch of nonsense.
No doubt about it. That last one is impossible to dispute. Let's go back to your first one, which is interesting. Jump ball, that comes up quite a bit in these conversations too, right? And there seems to be a very arbitrary and capricious nature to just back and forth. The arrows one way, then the other. One way, then the other.
Sure.
Okay, the question's this, because I might have an alternative offer as well. I think the argument that people make against an actual jump ball is just time. I mean, it shouldn't take as long as it probably would to get everybody aligned, get the officials ready. You should be able to do that in 10 or 15 seconds, but they wouldn't. You're probably going to have all that extra TV timeouts with it. I mean, that's what it's going to turn into. But how many times a game would you be having the extra jump ball? I like the idea. If you're good at part of the game, you should be rewarded for it. And if you've got a guy with a knack for winning jump balls, you should be rewarded for it. But how about this even, Wes? If you want to make for more competitive finishes, which all things in sports steer towards that, right? I mean, that's why all rules favor offense in football, because if a team's trying to sit on a lead, the other team is catering to those rules and the team in the lead is not. So it funnels everything toward closer finishes. What if the jump ball, instead of arbitrarily going back and forth, what if the team and the losing team always won the jump ball? Remember those all-star games they used to have, like college football all-star games, where if you were down by 10, you got the ball back?
Yeah.
Remember those rules, those weird
I don't
rules?
hate that.
I played in the North-South game in West Virginia, in the North-South All-Star game. And back when we played in it, I don't know if it's still the case, but we were the first year they introduced that rule. If you were down by 10, you got the ball back. So you could have the ball on consecutive possessions. And we were victimized by the rule. Tommy Zaban from Huntington East, great quarterback on Virginia Tech. Tommy took that rule and came from behind and beat us when we were up 24-7 at one point. And I hated that rule. But you know what? It made for a more competitive game. So what if the losing team, you have to sort it out. What if the losing team wins every jump ball?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good until it happens to your team at the wrong moment and you end up losing, right? And then you're like, what's this dumb rule?
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But talk to me about targeting here, Jed, as we wrap this thing up.
All right, let's finish with this and we'll get into our over-under. This was my final one. No game or half-game suspensions for targeting, much like you said. Instead, I would replace it with this: a 15-yard penalty, and the defense is forced to finish the possession without the penalized 11th player. You're not allowed a sub.
That's extreme.
Isn't there some kind of rule in soccer where you can be like -1? I think there is.
So
if a fan mentioned that to me.
Yeah, if someone needs to get their ankle taped or something stretched, or like the cleats of your shoe need replaced or something, like they'll play on and you got to go to the sideline and get your business handled and come back. Yeah.
I thought a soccer person told me,
but not necessarily, not for like a yellow card or something. Like it's not like a
red card. They called it.
Well, yes, if you get a red card, you're out for the rest of the game and your team has to play a man down. That is true.
Well,
yes.
Maybe that's what he was talking about, because I didn't even realize that when I said this. But the reason I like this, so all the things that I said in defense of defenses up to this point, they now suddenly hate me. They're like, he's not for the defense, that's for sure. Because listen to this one. I'm talking about going 10 on the defensive side for the remainder of the possession.
That's
now,
extreme,
so let's
baby.
say it's third. Let's say it's 3rd and 17, and the offense has the ball on their own 15. Okay, well, you target and it's incomplete. Well, that's an automatic first down, 15 yards out to the 30. You're off the field, and now your defense has to finish the possession with 10 guys. Now, the upside is, if you can work some magic and find a way to force a punt, guess what? Your penalty's over. You're right back on the field. There's no suspension. You're not for the rest of the game. You're not out for the next game. You're not out at all beyond that possession. But what I like, Wes, are things that precipitate strategy in the game. And I know creative defensive play callers will be coming up with innovative ways to handle those situations when they're in that -1 scenario. When they have 10 guys on the field, different guys are going to handle it differently. I mean, a lot of guys might go cover 0 without the second blitzer, just the first, to go +1 instead of +2. Whatever the case might be, you're going to have to go some version of man coverage maybe, because I was thinking if you go zone, boy, it's already difficult to clog all the zones with 11 guys. Imagine with just 10 guys. Are you going to rush one fewer? What are you going to do? But what I'm confident in is you would very quickly, if you introduce this rule 2 months into the season, you would see some things that are working far better than others and will become in vogue because of brilliant defensive strategists. They will come up with ways to offset this and buy time for the remainder of that possession, even though it is a major disadvantage. So I like the idea that you're not punishing the kid, to at least to the degree that we have been, because that does seem very arbitrary. I mean, whether you're costing them money, whether you're costing them opportunities to play at the next level, whatever it is, just because a kid can't happen to defy gravity in the middle of a play and twist his body in a way that Mother Nature never intended mid-play, doesn't mean he should miss the rest of the game or part of the next game. Make him sit out the remainder of that possession, and then he's right back on the field.
I love it.
You know, it'll be fascinating, Wes. Just imagine if this happened. Let's say, like I said, an offense starts the ball at the 15, it's 3rd and 15, or it's 1st and 10, whatever the case is, and somebody gets called for targeting. 15-yard penalty. Okay, 15 yards, now you're out to the 25 or the 30. Well, now the offense drives 40, okay? And a second guy is ejected from the possession for targeting. Now you have 9. So now it gets real crazy. So you better be real careful when you're down to 10 that you certainly don't get called for targeting at that point. But I like the idea that it would introduce some incredible strategy by better defensive play callers when they already have so many things working against them. What's one more, right?
Yeah, I think we both agree that you got to stop throwing guys out for the first time in a game for that happen, and it's just too stiff. It's too stiff of a punishment. But I liked this, Jed. This was fun. Let us know, obviously, if you're watching along on YouTube, in the comments, what you would, if you were college football commissioner, what you would change, and obviously you can tweet us. If you're not on the YouTube side, if you're just on the audio side, tweet us and let us know your thoughts on this as well. But Jed, before we get out of here, we do need to talk some Big 12 win total over-unders for 2026 that are now out. And partner, I tell you what, it's a tough line for the Mountaineers, man. At 5.5 over-under wins for 2026.
5.5. Okay, if you haven't seen it, the Big 12 broke down. We won't even mention every team. We'll mention some as we come to them. But at the top of the Big 12, as you might imagine, was Texas Tech. Yes. Their projected over-under is 11.5. There were a couple with 7.5. There was an 8.5. But there was a log jam right there with a bunch of 5.5s, and we were one of the many 5.5s. It was almost like if they couldn't figure out a number, they just arbitrarily tossed 5.5 onto whoever it might be. So let's game this out now, Wes. Should we take the over? Should we take the under? So can we get to 6 wins? Okay. Well, let's consider this. Let's go through the schedule and see what this might in fact look like, what each team might present at this early juncture. All right. We open with Coastal Carolina. Ordinarily, nothing's a given. It's an it's an FBS program, a group of 5 team. Coastal is pretty salty as a program, but they are also a team in transition. Sure. Ryan Beard is going to be a first-year coach. It will be his first game at the helm. So they'll be trying to work some things out. He's over from Missouri State, where he did a nice job. What they might look like right out of the gates, that might be a tall order. Okay, let's say we find our first win against Coastal Carolina, as we should. All right. Moving on to UT Martin. UT Martin is an FCS team. They were 500 last year, so they're kind of a middle of the pack FCS team, old 1AA. Speaking of 1AA, I actually played against these guys, Wes, way back in the day. Ron Roberts, the longtime D coordinator at Baylor, was a linebacker at UT Martin. We played against him when I was with Jimbo and Terry at Sanford back in the late 80s, not long before at the time, we were FCS and they were only Division II. That was shortly before they made the jump from Division II to FCS. But they come into Morgantown. It's a very sturdy program. Coach has been there 20 years, won 130 games, but that's win number 2, right?
Yep.
Just
better be.
So let's say we have 2. Now we're trying to climb to beyond 5.5. Now it gets interesting. Week 3 in Charlotte against Virginia. Virginia, of course, let's start with this. Virginia's over-under, pegged by Vegas, is 7.5. Why not? They're coming off the most successful season in program history. They've been playing football since the 1800s. and their 11-3 win, first 11-win season in program history. Coach Tony Elliott has done a great job there. They won the Gator Bowl to get to that 11th win. Now, they lost quarterback Chandler Morris, but as we talked about on the show not too long ago, they brought in Bo Pribula, former Penn State quarterback who spent last season at Missouri, and Eli Holstein and his Band-Aid from Mountaineer Field, former Pitt quarterback. So they'll battle it out. They're expected to contend in the ACC. Here's what I find interesting about this game. I would imagine, they'll bring some fans to Charlotte as well, I would think, but not as many as West Virginia is going to bring. I mean, we're going to take that place over. We almost always do when we play in Charlotte. So it'll be an advantage for West Virginia, the venue. But don't forget, Virginia opens the season, we talked about this, on the road in Rio against NC State. What's interesting about that, if you look at it, Rio's 4,500 miles from Charlottesville. Now, the time difference is only an hour, but if I'm not mistaken, that's an 8 or 9 hour flight, maybe more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even on charter, I'm saying, just direct flight on charter, 8 to 10 maybe. I was trying to sort through that. And Phil Steele has told us that the people, this isn't playing in Dublin, but there will be some impact here. Phil Steele has told us about those teams that have been forced to play in Europe and then recover. And you were over in Europe with the Steelers. He said, in talking to those coaches, it's not the first game back, it's the second game back that impacts them the most from such a trip. Well, if there's a similar impact going to Rio, we don't know the answer to that, but let's say there is, we are not Virginia's first game back. We are their second game back. They have an FCS team, I believe, their first game back and then a bye. So what do you think there in week 3, Wes, as we hustle through the schedule here?
I mean, that's tough. As I start to look through this, Jed, I'm like, Coastal Carolina win, UT Martin win, Virginia win, Iowa State win, Oklahoma State. This is of the first 4 or 5 games. This is the one that I would really circle. I know I don't want to jump the gun here. Oklahoma State, I'm a little on the fence on because they brought in some crazy. Sorry, say that again.
There's only 3 categories. Ones we think at this early stage, and a ton of things could change. We got a better than average chance to win. Ones that could go either way, like Virginia, we don't know because they're sorting through some things too.
Yes.
And then there's the ones that are going to be a challenge. Okay, so wouldn't you agree this is in the toss-up category?
This is in the toss-up category. Yes, I would say in your first 5 games, this one and the Oklahoma State game feel like really in the toss-up category.
I would agree with Oklahoma State because, again, their number is 5.5. They have 14 North Texas transfers, including their quarterback, Mestamaker, who's
really good.
One of the most highly regarded, if not the most highly regarded, right up there with Sorsby and the rest.
Very good.
So he transfers to North Texas, understands the system. Caleb Hawkins, their running back, 25 touchdowns a year ago, 1,400 yards. So they have some weapons coming in that understand the system for new head coach Eric Morris. North Texas, again, was 11-2 team last year. So Oklahoma State, I agree. We don't know what to expect of them.
It's in Morgantown, though, too.
It's in Morgantown. Exactly. Here's what's funny. The 2 teams, in my estimation, that are the toughest to get a beat on, if you're looking at it from the outside looking in, of the 16 teams in the Big 12, I think it's 1, Oklahoma State, and 2, West Virginia. Really? Yeah. If you're being fair.
Iowa State's tough. Iowa State's tough, too, because, they had an insane amount of turnover. At one point, they had 14 guys on their roster, I think it was. But I agree with you in general, yeah.
What I would say about Iowa State, there's maybe less reason for optimism with the change. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was forced change with 54 kids transferring out. 23 of them went to state. New head coach came in from Washington State. We'll see what kind of job Jimmy Rogers does. They're the only team in the country with 0 returning starters to power conference level. 0. At least we have 3. Right? They have none. On 3 ranked their portal class, Wes, 68th, dead last for what that's worth among power conference schools. Ooh. So Iowa State, you figure as difficult as it is to play in Jack Trice Stadium, I've said, to me, that's the most unheralded venue in the Big 12. Big surprise for me as somebody who grew up watching Big 12 football from a distance. Jack Trice Stadium surprised me more than any of them, how challenging that is. But I would think I lean into that being one. We got to find a way to get in there and get a rock
Yes.
fight going and come out with a
Yes.
win, right? So
Yes.
that puts us at 3 with 2 toss-ups.
Yep.
All right, that's my math.
That's
Then
I'm with you. I'm with you. You through those first 5 games, you better at least be 3-2.
And then, without a bye, in comes another pretty salty team that's over under is 7.5, and that's Arizona making the long trip from Tucson. The Fighting Rodney Gallagher's all of a sudden, right? Head coach Brent Brennan returns, but guess what? So does quarterback Noah Fafita. He's thrown for 9,000 plus yards. He's what makes them hum. That was a big deal with him coming back. Now, they had a really solid portal class, top 20 in the country, number 3 in the Big 12, according to On3. So I think they addressed some needs. This is one where home field has to matter. Home field has to matter. And Wes, I would say there, do we call that a toss-up?
Yes, I have that as one of my toss-ups. Yes.
That's a toss-up too. Moving on to Cincinnati the next week. Cincinnati kind of in a similar situation as us, but they lost some really critical pieces they didn't want to lose. Their over-under number is also 5.5. Remember, they were 7-6 last year, but that's belied by that 7-1 start. They lost their last 5 games, including 3 bad blowout losses. Of course, the big offseason news, yes, Scott Satterfield's back for his 4th year, and he's managed to win more each year. 3 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins, nice trend. But Brennan Sorsby leaves a big league quarterback-sized hole in his program, going off to Texas Tech as a high-priced quarterback off to the Red Raiders. So he's gone. We faced him before. We saw how talented he was. On3 doesn't think much of what they've done with their portal class, ranks them 64 out of 68. Georgia Southern's quarterback, J.C. French, who did some nice things down there last year, he's transferring in. They have an Ivy League kid transferring in. It's just, I struggle to believe you're going to be able to approach the type of play you were getting from Brennan Sorsby.
Yeah.
Not to say J.C. French won't be solid and they won't find answers to quarterback spot. I think they're going to lean into trying to run the ball a little more. They were balanced before, but I think we got to find a way to win this one, Wes.
I've got this one down as a win, Jed. I've got 5 must wins, 2 I'm penciling in as losses, and so that leaves what? The other 5 as toss-ups.
Yes, you're 2. Okay, so TCU projected. We're at TCU. They're projected at 6.5. Sonny Dykes.
This is another one of my toss-ups. Yeah.
Yeah, they lost their quarterback, Josh Huber, going to Indiana, play for the national champs. He's supposed to be the next guy in line for that system. Now, the other big thing, Wes, that nobody's talking about, their offensive coordinator, Kendall Briles, which was a huge part of their success in recent years. Remember, they lost him in the offseason to South Carolina. He headed to the SEC. They're saying that Sonny Dykes wants to run the football a little more. He brought the coordinator Gordon Samus in from UConn, wants to demonstrate a little more balance. They too have an Ivy League quarterback transfer in Jaden Craig. It sounds like he's the front runner down there. That's on the road at TCU. Again, sounds like toss-up.
It's tough. Yeah, that's a toss-up. That's one of my. I've got like I said, 5 wins, 5 toss-ups, 2 losses. That's one of my toss-ups.
Bye. Then the bye. Then we go to Lubbock.
Yeah, that's one of my losses.
That's one of my losses. Stranger things have happened. 14 returning starters. They got Brendan Sorsby in. They might be better at quarterback, and they crushed it in the portal. They're spending a ton of money again. So understandable that you would say that. They reloaded their D-line. I think they're going to be nasty. I think they're a potential playoff team once again. Kansas on 11-14. Kansas 5-7 the last 2 years. Quietly, they've slipped. They've kind of crested and slipped down a little bit. 5-7 each of the last 2 seasons. Their over/under is 5.5. Lance Leipold has done a good job there, bringing them out of the cellar. I mean, one of the worst programs in the history of college football. At least he put a pulse back into them. But now they're trying to get their true north again. Guess who's back in town? OC Andy Kotelnicki. Things blew up at Penn State, so he returns to Lawrence, back from Penn State. Jalen Daniels is gone. This will be the first time since 2019 they've had a football team without Jalen Daniels involved on some level. They're saying Cole Ballard, their longtime backup, might be the starter. This is one, West, that if we're on the same level as they are, I just have to think our arrow is pointing slightly different. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Maybe a couple years ago, and even last year, they beat us 41-10. They smacked us around. They caught us where they wanted us. We got to find a way to win this one.
This is one of my 5 wins, Jed. I agree. If it was in Lawrence, it's a different conversation, but in Morgantown, you got to win. Got to have that one.
Houston, to me, this is all about where it's at because I think Houston's going to be a very, very complete football team. They finished 10-3 quietly. It was obviously our signature win for 2025, going down there and upsetting them as a ranked team. Willie Fritz is a heck of a football coach. Connor Wigman's back, and that dude is underrated. 25 touchdowns, 9 picks, ran for 700 yards, double-digit rushing touchdowns. They have a very solid foundation, and they, too, attack the portal very well. That, to me, was a little bit surprising because they're a team, you very much get the sense or the impression from the outside, they don't have the resources that maybe a couple others do in the hunt for NIL talent. So they made some magic happen with the second-ranked class in the Big 12 from a portal standpoint. I think they're going to be a solid football team, but I like to think coming into Morgantown, we're going to find a way to make that happen in a rock fight. That's one that I like our chances. You agree?
I've got that as one of my toss-ups. I lean towards us, but I have that as a toss-up.
You just talked me into it, Wes. I'll make that a toss-up. Didn't take much.
And then
I think they're
at,
going to be really solid.
Yeah, same. And then at Utah, I have as that and Texas Tech are the 2 that I have chalked up as losses.
About the Utah game, I think that really speaks to this schedule. Okay, we finished the regular season on the road in Salt Lake. Rice Eccles is always a tough place to play. Yes, they're a team in transition. Technically, Kyle Whittingham has gone on to Michigan, retired, then took the Michigan job, wink, wink. But their head coach was a head coach in waiting, Morgan Scally, longtime D coordinator. He's been a central part of that program for a long, long time. So you expect some solid continuity there. And I think the odds makers do as well, which is why they project their over-under at 8.5 wins. Wes, they have 7 new assistant coaches. Jason Beck, I think, is going to be a tough guy to replace. Their offensive coordinator, who went on to Michigan with Whittingham. But Devin Dampier's back. Wayshawn Parker's back. They got some key pieces in place, and I think they're going to be a tough out. And going on the road makes that really challenging.
Yeah.
So, but think about that, Wes. To me, that's our second toughest game, and it's against a new coach, technically a first-year coach. So, if let's say that's an L, okay, let's just, again, much stranger things have happened. We're just trying to work some math. That puts us, track me out here, Wes, 1, 2, 3. We said Iowa State was 3. Cincinnati's 4.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Kansas 5.
And then 2. So we're 5, 5, and 2, 5 toss-ups. So all we got to do is win one of those toss-ups.
Or even, you know what?
Figure,
Jed, if you go 4-1 in those 5 games that we say you should win, and then you go 2-3 in your toss-up games, that gets you to 6. I mean, so I feel more confident about the over since we've done this exercise. You've got some real room because yes, while you look at that at Texas Tech and at Utah and you say, man, that's going to be very, very difficult. You also look at it and say you should start 2-0. You've got a real good chance to start 4-1, if not 3-2. Heck, maybe even if you get to 5-0, then it becomes a foregone conclusion. But I feel like 5 that you should win, 5 toss-ups, 2 that are going to be very difficult to win. You go 4-1 in those you should win. All of a sudden, there's, I think, a really good opportunity to get to at least 6 or 7 wins on this schedule.
This isn't us forecasting a record. We're just saying, okay, if you want to realistically approach this based on what we know here, St. Patrick's Day-ish in March, a lot of things are going to change between now and the fall. And we could far exceed these numbers. Absolutely. And the only thing you can be guaranteed of is there's 2 or 3 teams on this schedule that aren't going to be, for good or for bad, at all what you thought they might be. Who saw BYU coming last year? Who had any idea after losing their quarterback in the middle of the summer, they're starting a true freshman? You're doing what? Who saw that coming? Who saw even Houston turning into what Houston turned into last year? So it's difficult to project these things. All these teams won't turn out like you thought. But if you want best case scenario, Wes, You talked about it right there. If you find a way to go to Charlotte and take advantage of Mountaineer fans in a packed stadium in Charlotte and beat UVA, who has some questions in its own right. Yes, they were 11-3 last year. That doesn't mean they're going to do similar things this year. We don't know. So let's say you're 3-0, you win those 2 at home, like you were talking about a minute ago. If you find your way to 5-0, way stranger things have happened. And I'm going to say this: if you're 5-0, you're 6-0. Because can you imagine the environment Cincinnati will be stepping into against a 5-0 West Virginia team at Mountaineer Field? So now you're 6-0 and you're heading to Fort Worth before your bye to take on TCU.
That's the dream.
Yeah, you want best case scenario, you want silver lining, you want to put your goggles on, your old golden blue colored goggles. There you go. So fun little exercise, but that's how we see it with the over-under 5.5, Mr. Vegas.
Going to be a lot of fun. Gets me excited here. I know we're still a long ways away from September, but it'll be here before we know it. Jed, this was a fun episode today, man. We covered a lot of different ground. Big shout out again to the rifle team for winning the national championship. Ladies, let's go on a run here, starting in Morgantown. Boys, let's go win us a crown. Baseball team, keep doing your thing. And we will have plenty more here on spring football and the WVU football program as we roll along, like Jed said, kind of at the St. Patrick's Day point here. But there will be plenty of moving and shaking throughout the coming months. But that'll do it for us today. Big thank you, as always, to our co-host, our producer, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, the runaway, sharp-dressed beer truck, barbecue extraordinaire, Big O. For the signal caller, I'm Wes Uhler. And the one thing we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.